my name is Chiara Marrapodi, and I am here as your host, Coffee with the Coaches. And I have Debbie Brown today with me as my guest. Thank you, Debbie, for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. This is a fun time for me.
It's for me too. It's such a pleasure to have you. And today we're going to be talking about motivation.
It's a great topic.
It is a great topic. Tell me your thoughts about motivation.
Well, with motivation, I feel that everyone struggles with motivation. Um, and some people just don't know how to get through it and they just take it personally, I think. And I feel like people need to give themselves grace when it comes to motivation because it can be affecting things in your life can be affecting your motivation, what you're dealing with, or it could just be that, okay, you have a better time of day than another time of day. Like I can be really motivated in the morning,
Mhm.
uh, not so much in the evening, and I struggle really hard with it. So I think everyone has a problem with motivation, and sometimes people just beat themselves up so hard that they're just not motivated. They're not getting the things done on their to-do list, or they're, not getting their project the boss assigned them as far along as they needed to, and they don't know how to work through it. And so there's a lot of little tips that I give people when I coach them on motivation of ways to work through it. I had one lady I coached, and some of the tips I gave her really she'd never thought about doing, and it was very helpful to her. So, but the biggest thing I think I try to tell people too is that don't be so hard on yourself. Life gets in the way. We get busy, and then the stress that comes up, and then we just push things off, and we blame motivation. We blame the lack of motivation in it. So that's just part of my thoughts on it.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. I picked up a few things that I think are pertinent of what you said is there is intrinsic motivation, which is an internal drive. So an internal drive to do something that you desire to have an outcome for. And then there's extrinsic motivation, which is more external, where you have a pressure from the outside. That's a force that motivates you or creates a desire to have an outcome, so that there is not just an outcome, but a desired understanding or achievement. I think achievement is the right word, and sometimes it takes a little while. I like the pause. I think the pause is a great space to be in because it allows for not just thinking, but self-awareness and really to take the time to express accurately and with clarity. And so, along with that, it's interesting because I feel like often people are motivated a lot by the extrinsic factors. And
Mhm.
so the external, like you were saying, the boss, um, the understanding of what needs to be done in the moment. And often it is not in coherence or incongruent with the intrinsic motivation. And sometimes this is where people have blocks because you have one rubbing against the other. And without the alignment and the coherence between the two, we start to use our energy inefficiently, so to speak, and our mental energy, our physical energy in a way that often doesn't align. And I think as coaches, what you were saying very, very well is that for us to bring these two things into alignment and to also balance this out, because there's a lot of extrinsic motivation to be a certain way, look a certain way, speak a certain way, do certain things to appear productive, because the
Mhm.
culture requires if you're not productive, then you might not be doing enough. And this goes for whether it's somebody staying at home looking at children, looking after children, or somebody who's in the workplace. It's entirely the same. It's that unknown norm, that culture that holds us kind of hostage. But then people then find that the intrinsic motivations, as I said, they're great on these extrinsic external motivations. And so then we start to have these feelings of not being complete, being incomplete, not being happy, not being able to achieve the goals that we really want from a heart space.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And that's when they're so hard on themselves because they're not getting that desired outcome. And it all is coming down to that motivation, and they don't know how to deal with it. And you're correct. It could be whether it's a parent at home or the boss or who, even the coach that is feeling like they have all these things that they have to be doing when in reality, maybe it's not those tasks, but just get out there and do what we need to do to help people. But we're feeling like, this inside, I've got to be motivated to get this list of items done. I have to do my marketing and I have to do my, set up my website, all of those things as a coach. Because sometimes you don't need all of that, but we push ourselves and feel like we've got to do more and be more motivated to do it. So yeah, I agree. It's very interesting, the difference, and I love the intrinsic and the extrinsic motivation. The way that you put that, I love that. I had not read about that, but I understand it. So yeah.
Well, I feel like sometimes motivation is misplaced,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not really motivation that comes from us. So, putting the intrinsic and extrinsic aside, we're looking at belief systems and norms. And if the motivation is not something that comes from within us, literally it's an unfoldment, and it's not even a desire, it's more of a passion. And there's a difference between desire and passion.
Mm-hmm.
So the passion is it's a fuel in your heart that is just a fire for something. For some people, maybe for cooking even, or something that it seems simple, but it requires a lot of creative flair. Could be for poetry. It could be for something that they do for work, like coaching is for the both of us. It's our passion to support people, individuals to find their true motivations, what's underneath that, and what are some of the needs that perhaps were not met that maybe need to be looked at so that you're able to find clarity. Because, like I was saying before, I feel like that self-awareness and being very clear in communication, very clear in what direction we're going and why we're going there. Is it a desire? Or is it
Mm-hmm.
passion? And so, the desire is temporary, it's short-lived, but a passion is long-lasting and the fire will burn longer because you're not going to be doing it all in into the desire, but the passion is consistent. There's
Mm-hmm.
temperance here, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel that these kind of perspectives are related to motivation is to really have clarity, which I believe that's what I heard you saying too, is that bringing that clarity to people, individuals who seek our support and seek professional coaches, is very important because without it, and now we're just going to be walking in the dark, blind, right? And we think
Mm-hmm.
we know what the intrinsic and extrinsic motivations are, but that's the surface piece. But looking underneath is whether or not it's a desire or a passion.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then you have the desire and you have the passion, and then you have the need. You
Yes,
have to do the things that you don't want to
yes,
do. And
correct.
yet it's a necessity. We have to do it, but we just can't dig deep and seem to get it done. And so you throw that in there as well. So yeah.
Do you
I
know? Go, go.
go ahead.
Are you sure? I just got excited. So just forgive me if I interrupted you.
Oh,
Um,
you're fine.
I kind of feel like there is a little bit of understanding our ego as well. And also understanding some of the blocks that may be in the way of making sure a need is met, not just internally, but also externally. So you have the intrinsic and extrinsic again. It gets interesting. Um, but really understanding your why, because without the
Mhm.
why, we don't know why we're having this conversation. Why are we connecting? Why is there a passion for this subject? Why are we doing the most mundane things? It's because we know in the long term, it's not a short-term desire that's being gratified. We're following our passion. As part of the passion,
Yeah.
there needs to be certain steps taken so that it can be achieved long term. And this is what you were talking about, which I find it's very important. And I think disentangling these pieces, they may not seem not that they don't seem important, but they may seem minor. But they're not minor at all. They're really a part of the bigger picture. And if we can look at these pieces that are underlying the bigger picture of what motivation means to us personally and as a collective, then we'll start to see things differently and there'll be more coherence, which I love.
Yes, most definitely. Most definitely. And what I was going to say was I heard this when I heard this story from a friend of mine yesterday, and I thought, oh, that's good. That is good. And it fell in line with this in a way because she was telling me that she was in a meeting of some sort, and this guy was talking about his struggles right now with motivation and getting things done, and that he had been feeling like he was just doing so well. He was like going gangbusters and he was getting everything done and he was being productive and he was doing everything on his list and he was making headway and all this stuff. And then he said it was just like hitting a brick wall and nothing would happen. He was just at a standstill and he couldn't figure out what was going on. And the comment to him was made that you have to remember that when you're at the mountaintop and you were on that top of the mountain and doing everything that you said you had to be doing, and when you're on that mountaintop, nothing grows on the top of the mountain.
It's true.
But when you go down into the valley, and when you're down doing the heavy duty, I'm having to dig deep and get this done, or I'm struggling with these challenges and I'm having all of those things that are happening, everything is plush and green and grows in the valley.
Mm.
So that's where it's all going to be producing, and it's the work is coming together with what you're doing to be productive on the top of the mountain, but it's growing in the valley. And I thought I really like that, that it's going to grow down in the deep part, not at the top of the mountain where it's just snow and cold.
I love this metaphor.
Yeah, I did too. I thought that was great.
It's really cool because you're right. There's snow at the top, and everybody wants to get to the top. It's like when I
Mm-hmm.
get to the top, then everything's going to be great. I'll have this much money, I'll have this much success. But it's not about that. You
That's
can
right.
scramble to the top, and it's very windy.
Yep.
It's snow-capped. It's difficult, and to maintain that space is difficult. But
Right.
like you said, if we have the humbleness to be able to come down into the valley and see what's in the valley and have that 360-degree view from different perspectives. So, not just the high one, the global
Mm,
one, but to come down and experience in the nitty-gritty of it. And that's a real leader, the leader who's able to be in the trenches, so to speak, to learn, to be, to support, to grow with, but then come back and be able to have that 360-degree view to be able to lead with humbleness and with servitude. Like, and I don't mean servitude in the sense of um, waiting on someone, but no, it's in service to somebody else, to their growth and their betterment, because their success is your success. That's what I mean. And it's a conscious
yes.
leadership. And that
Yes.
conscious leadership is really, really important, I feel.
Yes.
And yeah, please, you want to say something? Go ahead.
No, that's it. I agree. I love how you put that in there with the servitude because it's so in the leadership. And that's true because then they're going to help them get back up that mountain to get to that success, but know that you're not going to always stay there.
You
It's
can't.
going to come back down and you're going to
Yeah.
have those peaks and valleys,
Yeah.
and that's life, and that's what we work with.
Yes,
So,
you're
so
right. It's
very much.
life. And I heard somebody say to me too, whatever goes up has to come down at some point. Because you need the different perspectives to grow as an individual, and different valleys have different growths in terms of, the vegetation, the fauna and the flora, if we're going to go very kind of explicit with the metaphor, like, just take it as it is. Um, but within that, you'll see and learn about different flowers and different nectar and different plants and different ways of growing and so on and so forth. And you bring that with you to the next mountain. And so it's a really beautiful analogy because you go through the valleys and the mountains, like you said, but they're all become different because of diversity. And I think it's
Yeah,
only in diversity that we'll really learn the different things and the clarifying factors relating to our own intrinsic and extrinsic motivation.
very well said. Yes, ma'am.
It needs to change
It
because we
does.
change.
Yes.
Otherwise, I mean, we'll be up on the mountain cold by ourselves.
By ourselves. That's right.
But what's
Yep.
the point
And
in
nothing's
life?
gonna grow there.
Well, there's a time and a place for so many things, isn't there?
Yes.
Really is a
Yes,
time
very.
and place.
Yeah.
This has been a wonderful conversation, Debbie. Thank you for sharing your time with me. I
Thank
really appreciate it. And what would be your closing remarks in terms of motivation?
you. As I said, give yourself grace. Don't be, so hard on yourselves when things happen, just keep working through that valley, just keep working. You'll get to the top and then you're going to come back down because everybody does. It's how well you handle it when you are coming back down. Yeah.
I agree with you. I think it's about emotional regulation, emotional IQ, emotional awareness, perhaps. There are different names for it. But it's also really understanding the lessons that are to be learned along the way so that they can inform us and we can embody them and integrate them. Because then the motivation will actually be much stronger in certain aspects. And that coherence that we were talking about before, that we're all looking for, that alignment, will unfold on its own because we're committed to not staying stagnant. We're committed to moving and evolving with the seasons and the cycles and the rhythms of life.
Yes. Yes. Very good. So true. I like the stagnant. We are not committed to being stagnant.
No, no.
No, no.
Being stagnant is well, I mean, if you look at the body being stagnant, what does it do? It creates all sorts of harm.
Yes. No growth.
No
That's
growth. And it's a stagnant river. It becomes very dirty and silted, and there's
yes.
no movement, there's no change.
Mhm.
So I do believe that motivation is also related to change. Then, do you think we can come to this conclusion, maybe?
Yes, most definitely. Most definitely. It is.
Well, Debbie, it was an absolute pleasure and honor to have you on Coffee with the Coaches. And this is Chiara Marrapodi. Thank you to my guest, and we'll be back next month.